Hi, this is Zach with Warner Wound. Today I'll be taking a look at the Christopher Ward C900 Worldtimer. This is a new watch for the brand that's set to come out, I believe, in November. We are very happy to have gotten a chance to take kind of an early look at it and kind of give you an early hands-on review of it. So this watch continues their higher-end line of in-house proprietary complications. They work with a German watchmaker named Johann Jank, who creates kind of custom complications. We've seen the jump hour watch, we've seen the mono pusher chronograph, and now this is the newest one, which has they call it a world time function. I believe that's a little, perhaps a little debatable. I would call it more of a unique dual time zone watch with a also even more unique kind of time zone indicator. But no matter how you look at it, it's a very interesting watch with a unique dial. Clearly you see here there's a map, and on that map there are little pinholes, and in those pinholes you can actually see what time zone is indicated. So right now it's saying the second time zone is London Heathrow. You can see London highlighted there in red. So it's a very unique function that I believe only Christopher Ward has. The watch comes in at $2,165. For which you're getting clearly a very interesting watch, an accessible luxury watch with great detailing and features. So let's take a closer look now. The case of the Christopher Ward C900 stays kind of in the same vocabulary as the other C900 watches, the mono pusher, the jump hour. So it's a very formal case, very straightforward, but I think it's nice and elegant. It is a bit larger though than you might expect from a kind of more formal dress watch. So it is 43 millimeters in diameter here, 51 millimeters lug to lug, and about 12 millimeters tall. So yeah, like I said, it's wide, but it is flat, and I actually think it wears very nicely, and proportionally, obviously there's a lot going on here on this dial. I think 43 millimeters is actually quite right for this. The case design itself, these fairly straight, fairly wide lugs. I think they look really nice. They're fairly elegant. And then there is, a nice polishing over the top surface here, and then a nice brushing across the side. Not, extremely fancy finishing, but it is well executed. So the edges are very, very crisp, which, is just great to see. It's a bit of a conservative design, but I think it works very well with the flavor of this watch. The display, the case back is a display case back, which shows off the ETA 2893 modified movement, which they're calling the JJ03. This sample here happens to not have the correct case back, so I'll just show you a photo of that. But also around the window, it has a chart for the various airports in the 24 time zones that you can indicate here. The dial of the C900 Worldtimer is definitely the most complicated dial that Christopher Ward has yet to make. It has a lot of information on it, and it's quite interesting actually what they're doing here. So it really makes this watch unique, though questionably not a Worldtimer so much as a dual time, is that it's indicating home time and then time into second location, both in 24 hours. So typically a GMT or dual time watch would have your home time in a 12-hour spectrum and then your dual time in a 24-hour spectrum. But that can be confusing to read, and I personally actually found it a bit confusing to read because the hands will overlap each other and you just have to kind of think about two different time zones. Whereas here you'll see that the hour difference is very easy to immediately see. So right now these are 5 hours apart to indicate the difference between New York and London. But it takes a little bit of getting used to read your home time on 24-hour scale, I think, especially for Americans who don't typically look at a 24-hour time clock. Either way, though, you get used to it pretty quickly. But so now looking at the dial itself, you have this raised index here that consists of each hour in 24 hours, and that's split at 6 and 6 to kind of indicate day and night, which is it's a nice touch. It's quite convenient. I've seen that on other 24-hour time zones before, but I quite like it on a large dial. And then in the center, you have this whole map here. And they did a really interesting job and really good job with creating this map. So it's very three-dimensional. The C, which is a blue color, also has this little dimple texture in it, and they actually use the term dimple, and that creates a really interesting play with light. And what happens is the continents, which are then in just a kind of a stainless steel, really seem to float above that area. It's very almost like a holographic effect. And it's really nice and kind of just gives it a lot of pop. Then you'll also see within the map are all these little holes. There's one hole for each 24-hour time zone, and those are marked to indicate essentially what the major airport, international airport in that area is. So then this coordinates to this window here at the 24th hour, which will tell you then what the coordinating airport code is. So that's London Heathrow there. It's a bit complicated, it takes some getting used to. Clearly you have to know the various airports, but if you're setting a second time zone, you would likely have a relationship with that time zone. Maybe it's a place of work, maybe it's a family member, but you'll know what's there. Then around the very outer perimeter here, you have a very fine but quite actually easily readable minute index, which is useful because reading, since you have twice the amount of hour markers, that can get confusing for the minutes. So I did find myself referring to that a lot. The silver and blue color is really nice, and it does a really good job of emphasizing the red dual time zone hand, which just makes it all the more legible. The hour and minute hands here are kind of an elongated leaf shape. It's very elegant. I really like the way it looks. I think it plays well with both the font and the map. And then there is a stick second hand, which is in silver. It's very, it doesn't really distract or pop out too much. It's quite easy to kind of forget that it's there, which is a good thing. Overall, very, very nicely executed, very different and unique dial. Operating the caliber JJ03 is it's a little different, as it has kind of a unique function to it. Now, this is based on an ETA 2893, so it has very similar functions, but what they did was they added this secondary kind of time zone indicator function. So with the crown in first position, if you turn it clockwise, it'll jump the dual time zone hand, 1 hour at a time. But you'll notice that in the window at 24, that code hasn't changed. So right now, it isn't lined up to what that second time zone is. In order to do that, you have to turn the crown counterclockwise, and you'll see it begins to jump. I believe that then that would be Zurich. I don't know all the airport codes, to be honest. But it jumps around the globe, and it's actually quite interesting to watch it go. Definitely a very interesting piece of graphic layout on the disk underneath to make that happen. But what's particularly interesting about this part is that it's not really attached to the timing mechanism. It is static, and I believe it takes the place of the date wheel. So it's an interesting thing for them to have done, and it definitely, just kind of makes it a unique watch and definitely a unique approach to the dual time zone watch. Now with the crown all the way out, it does have a hacking seconds. You can adjust not all the way. You can adjust the main time here, which will keep the relationship between the first and second time zone. And of course, this is on a 24-hour scale, so you do have to adjust accordingly. On the wrist, the Christopher Ward C900 Worldtimer wears very nicely. I think the 43mm case actually feels a bit smaller, perhaps because of the intensity of the dial. There's just a lot going on, and I don't know, it just feels very compact. It is still large, but not overly so or too cumbersome. And I think it looks really, really nice. The blue color on the strap and the dial, it's a very dark blue. I was a little worried it'd be kind of actually too bright from the original press photos I saw, which would make it, I think, a little bit harder to integrate into just, your general outfit. But this dark blue goes well with black, it goes well with gray or brown, so it's really quite versatile. The design itself, it's kind of interesting. I almost find it a little bit challenging to define it because, you're used to very sporty watches or very dressy watches. This is just a very formal watch. It's it's very much like a kind of a businessman's watch. I think of this as being probably more appropriate for an older gentleman. There isn't really anything very youthful about kind of a map of such a detail, but it's very, very nice looking, and it is kind of sophisticated looking. Definitely a watch that I think is best suited for, a dressier, a more formal person, though, it isn't at the same time an extreme dress watch. It isn't really like, a watch one would wear to a wedding, per se, something like that. But very formal, very sophisticated, and I think just very well executed. It doesn't scream at you, even though it has actually a lot going on, which I really like. It's somehow subdued, even in being quite busy. The strap it comes on here, this blue alligator strap. This is genuine Louisiana gator. It's really, really nice strap. I really like the tone of blue, as I said before. It's a very nice, has a very nice stiffness to it. It's just very high quality. So I believe all the Christopher Ward straps we've really seen on various watches have been very nice, and this one continues that trend. Has also a really clean deployment clasp here, which I believe is new to this watch. So it's a double button deployment clasp. You open it up and it's one-sided, and it has this kind of interesting way, I've seen this before, but of the way the strap kind of feeds through it, which just gives you, no overhang here for a very, very clean finish. Also a fit better under a sleeve. To wrap up, the Christopher Ward C900 Worldtimer is a very cool watch from the brand that, I love that they're sticking with this direction of creating higher level watches with unique complications at not terrible price. I mean, $2,100 is much higher than your typical C Ward, and it certainly isn't cheap, but for what they're offering in having a unique complication, unique functions, is really a very good price in the scheme of the watch industry. In terms of the actual functionality of the watch, I do think it's not really a Worldtimer per se, in terms of the typical definition of one, which would tell you the time of every country, every 24 hours time zone around simultaneously. This is really a dual time watch, but it's a very unique one at that. And as such, I think it's actually a very, very functional and very practical approach to the dual time zone watch. So if that is something you need, having the double 24-hour scale is really quite effective, and it makes reading at a glance much easier. And then having the map is a really nice reminder, and having this, the airport code is just very cool and very unique. The airport code thing, for me personally, I don't know the airport code, so that kind of indicates it is for somebody who's a little bit more jet set, someone who's more commonly traveling. But this isn't really a watch for everyone. I do think this is a watch for the kind of business class type, who's going to be wearing this, who is going to be traveling around a lot. And as such, as that watch, I think it's very successful, very, very well executed, and just another very, very cool offering from Christopher Ward. So please read the full review at wornandwound.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr. Thank you.